It's time for another electric bike review. This is the Freedare Eden step-through fat tire e-bike. It can go 28 miles per hour, it's got anti-theft features, and it might just be my favorite e-bike I've tested so far. Today I'm going to take an in-depth look at all the features and specs, go for a ride, and see what this reasonably priced commuter e-bike is all about. So the Freedare Eden is a fat tire step-through e-bike, meaning that it's super easy to step through the bike to get on it. It's got a 750 watt hub motor, a torque sensor, it comes with front and rear racks, and there's an app that provides GPS tracking and anti-theft features. If you want to buy this bike, be sure to use my link in the description below and also get $100 off using my coupon code. But don't do it just yet, make sure to watch the whole review first and see if this bike is for you. Though my channel primarily focuses on cars, you might have noticed some e-bike reviews recently. Living in a city with tons of traffic, I've found that getting around by car can often be annoying. E-bikes have made getting around the city a bit more interesting and more fun. Compared to a regular bike, an e-bike can allow you to cover greater distances and conquer challenging terrain without getting tired. So that means you might be more likely to use your bike for transportation and not just leisure. Electric bikes really have redefined convenience and fun on two wheels. Now, there are a ton of different types of e-bikes, folding, cargo, moped style, and something like this, which you might call a commuter bike. And you may have seen a ton of these rear drive fat tire e-bikes lately. They're really gaining in popularity. Like any type of bike, there are pros and cons. The negatives of a fat tire e-bike are that they're usually very heavy, meaning they're often not all that efficient. But the advantage to a fat tire bike is that these wide, cushy tires usually do a good job of soaking up bumps, providing a more comfortable ride. They can also inspire a bit more confidence on slippery or sandy surfaces, and if you actually want to ride on the beach, a fat tire is pretty much the only way you're going to be able to do it. So as far as I can tell, Freedare bikes are only sold online, and this Eden was shipped to me in what might be the largest and heaviest electric bike box I've seen to date, but everything was really well packed. In fact, I think this is the best packaged e-bike that I've come across so far. The assembly process was pretty easy and straightforward, and I didn't encounter any issues. You don't need to be a bike mechanic. If you have basic wrench holding capabilities and about an hour of free time, you can get this thing up and running and ready to ride. All right, it's time for a walk around so we can check out all of the features and specs of this Eden. So as I mentioned, this is a step-through design, meaning no top bar. It's got a pretty beefy looking frame. This thing is not dainty. Overall, I do really dig the look of the bike. And there's a couple other colors available if you don't want red. And they also have a high step version. Out back, there's a 750 watt Bafang hub motor. It's very common on bikes like this, 1000 watts of peak power and 80 Newton meters maximum torque, which seems decent. Integrated into this chunky frame is the 20 amp hour or 960 watt hour Samsung battery. It's secured with a key and can be removed. Freedare says this bike has a 90-mile range, but they don't say what pedal assist setting will give that range, so we'll check this out and see how far we can go. Out of the box, this e-bike can go 28 miles per hour. With those speeds, along with the included front and rear racks, I could see this being a very useful commuter bike. The rear rack holds up to 55 pounds and it also has a front basket. The bike weighs in at a hefty 84.2 pounds and it has a 330 pound max payload capacity. It's got the same Shimano Altus 7-speed drivetrain that I've seen on numerous fat tire e-bikes. You get 3 pedal assist modes, and we've got a torque sensor which detects the force of your pedaling, telling the motor how much power to apply. A lot of cheaper e-bikes come with a much simpler cadence sensor that turns the motor on or off when pedaling or not. Torque sensors can often allow a bike to have a much more natural pedal feel, so we'll talk about this more when I ride it. It's got a thumb throttle on the right side, Tektro hydraulic brakes with 180mm rotors, adjustable suspension up front and no suspension out back. The handlebars have a little bit of adjustability. It's got a relatively hard seat, big chunky 26x4 Kenda fat tires running on spoke wheels, plastic fenders front and rear. It's got simple controls, a clear and easy to read color display, a very bright headlight up front, a tail light out back, though the rear light has a separate battery and switch. We've got a bell but no horn, and check this out, there's a USB port so you can charge your phone while riding. That's pretty cool. I like that the cables are routed through the frame, but they are a bit bunched up near the front cargo rack. And we also have that Freedare app, which we'll talk about in more detail in just a bit. And this bike comes with a 2-year warranty. All right, let's head out and see how this thing rides. All right, so out back we've got that 750 watt hub motor producing 80 Newton meters of torque. It's very similar to most e-bikes that I've ridden recently, so let's see how it accelerates. Okay, from a dead stop, here we go. A little bit of a slow start, but it's picking up. 10 miles an hour, 12, 15, 20. We're gonna make it to 28, 22, 23, 25, 26, 28. All right, we did it. So yes, out of the box, we've got a 28 mile per hour top speed, which can be achieved via the throttle or pedaling if you can pedal fast enough. That's really quite fast. Way too fast for an area with lots of pedestrians, but extremely useful if you're commuting on busy roads alongside cars. And that's something that I've been doing quite frequently lately, so it is really nice to have that speed. But you'll just have to look at your local laws to determine where and when you can ride that quickly. All right, let's get back up to speed. Though I do have to say, at max speed, the motor on this bike is quite a bit louder than I've experienced on other e-bikes. All right, downhill brake test from 28 miles an hour. It's pretty good. Yeah, you get a little bit of nosedive because of that suspension, but it stops the bike pretty well. I don't have any problem with that. With a bike this heavy, you absolutely need hydraulic brakes. And thankfully, these also have 180 millimeter rotors, so pretty good stopping power, I'd say. All right, we're at the bottom of this grade right here. Let's see how it does on this hill. 3, 2, 1, go. All right, a little bit of a slow start, but we're making our way up this hill. All right, it's doing it. It's not the fastest I've seen up that hill, but it's perfectly acceptable. So I really do appreciate that we have a thumb throttle on the right here. I tend to prefer that over the twist style. I'm on the throttle a lot, and it's way easier on my wrist on the twist style throttle. All right, so we've got 3 levels of pedal assist, 1 being the least amount of power obviously sent to the motor, 3 being the maximum. And I'd say the differences between the 3 are pretty subtle. So one cool thing about this bike is that you get a torque sensor instead of a cadence sensor. So basically with a torque sensor, when you're pedaling, that sensor detects the force of your pedaling, and that tells the motor how much power to provide. And it gives a pedaling feel that's a bit more like a traditional non-motorized bike. And I've ridden plenty of inexpensive e-bikes with cadence sensors, and the application of power is often abrupt. And this torque sensor works really well here. It is really quite smooth. So this Shimano 7-speed gear set can be found on countless e-bikes at this price point, and it always seems to work well for me. I don't have any problems with it, but I do find most of the time, unless you're on some serious hills, I just leave it in 7th gear. This bike weighs in at over 84 pounds. This thing is hefty. It's not something that I'd want to regularly have to carry upstairs or lift onto the back of a car's bike rack or anything like that. But I'd say that weight does really help the bike feel more stable and secure. Handling is actually pretty decent for a bike of this size and weight. Okay, so let's talk comfort. I'm 6'3" and I really like the riding position here. Freedare says it can handle riders from 5'5" to 6'5". So I'm also a big fan of the shape of these handlebars. Because they curve forward, they allow you to have a more upright riding position instead of being hunched over. If you're putting a lot of miles on a bike, you're going to appreciate this. Your back and shoulders will thank you. Though I do have to say, I really don't like this seat. It's pretty hard, and it's just not that comfortable in my opinion. But bike seats are always a matter of personal preference. You might love this one. Either way, it's really easy to swap out a seat. The front suspension is doing a great job at soaking up the bumps, and even without rear suspension, those fat tires do seem to help soften the ride. So as I've been riding along this bike path today, I've seen maybe 2 or 3 people carrying more than one bike, which leads me to the topic of bike theft, because I'm guessing maybe those weren't their bikes. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about the anti-theft features that this Freedare gives you. So once the app is paired to your bike and the theft protection settings are turned on, it can give you an alert if someone attempts to move your bike. You can also prevent the bike from being turned on. It also provides a GPS location of the bike. And now obviously this app can't prevent your bike from getting stolen, but the notification might give you enough time to stop a potential theft, and the GPS location could help you recover it if it does get jacked. All right, so let's talk about range. So Freedare gives you the somewhat vague estimate of 90 miles of range, and that's probably with like a pedal assist one. I don't think you'd be able to get anywhere near that using throttle only. So today I've ridden 10 miles so far. I'd say that's mostly throttle riding, pretty high speeds, but I've been doing quite a bit of pedaling on this bike path, and my battery is showing 73%. So I'll do a little bit more riding and see how many miles I can actually eke out of this battery. All right, as you'll notice, I've put on my full face helmet and my bright yellow safety vest. I look like a complete dork, but I don't care because a lot of times the drivers in Los Angeles do not look out for people on bikes, so I want to be as visible as possible. Luckily, the streets that I need to go on don't have a ton of traffic. And thankfully in Los Angeles, they do allow you to ride on the sidewalk here, which can be useful if you're trying to avoid extremely dangerous roads. But of course, you don't want to be using the throttle and be going 28 miles an hour in that case. All right, so the speed limit on this road is 30, and I can go nearly that. So in most cases, I can keep up with traffic, on roads like this at least. And to me, personally, I find that a lot more useful than being stuck at 20 miles per hour, because when you can keep up with the flow of traffic, I feel like it makes intersections a little bit more safe. That's just my personal opinion. Let's see, how many people are gonna run the light? Oh my gosh, that might be a first for Los Angeles. I saw exactly 0 people run the red light. But yeah, in general, if I'm riding on city streets where there's a lot of cars, I absolutely want to be able to go 28 miles an hour. I mean, also, I just want to get where I'm going pretty quickly, so there's that too. And I think that's the thing for me, like electric bikes, they're not for recreation. They're not really for, exercise, although I could get some exercise, especially if the battery ran out on this one because it weighs so much. But for me, it's just all about transportation. I just want to get where I want to go. One thing I really like to do when I'm riding a bike is actually stop and look at all the unique cars that you see along the way. This old square body Chevy pickup truck, old Ford F-150. Oh my gosh, look at this thing. A Delica. That's pretty sweet. Now, as I've started to get a little bit more into electric bikes, I've really been trying to do a better job at planning my route so I'm not stuck along roads that suck for bikes. And this particular road is pretty nice. There's rarely any cars on it, because that's the thing. When you're on a bike, unfortunately, a lot of drivers just treat you as an obstacle rather than a human being. All right, so we're back home. We did 23 miles today, and it says we've got 24% charge left on this battery. Now, it was mostly full throttle riding, pretty high speeds, but it was mostly flat, not too many hills. But I think I could probably eke out maybe 8 more miles on this battery, putting us at a total of about 31 miles for today. Now, range is highly dependent on a lot of factors: how quickly you're going, how heavy you are, how much cargo you have, weather, wind, and of course, you can go a lot further if you do some pedaling, which I didn't do a whole lot of that today. So once we're ready to charge this thing up, just plug in the included 3-amp charger, and the battery should go from empty to full in about 7 hours. Okay, so how much does all of this cost you? The Eden step-through fat tire bike comes in at $15.99, and for what you get here, that seems like a pretty reasonable price. So like all e-bikes that I've tested, I've got numerous positives, but there's always some nitpicks. So let's start with the nitpicks first. I don't like the seat, but that's a matter of personal preference, and seats are easily swapped out. This bike does get a bit loud at top speed, and it would be nice if the taillight was wired in instead of using a separate battery and switch. The anti-theft features and GPS tracking are really cool, but it won't actually keep anyone from stealing your bike, though it could very well help you find it if it does get taken. Now, in terms of positives, overall, I really like how this bike rides. It's quick, the suspension is good, the step-through frame is well designed, it's easy to get on and off of, and I really like the relaxed riding position. And providing a front and rear rack is such a great addition. It makes the bike so much more useful right out of the box. I've been riding this bike a lot lately. It's one of my favorite e-bikes that I've ridden recently. It's got a good combination of comfort, practicality, and speed that make it an incredibly useful bike when getting around the city. So what do you think of the Freedare Eden? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon. If you want to help support the channel, please buy a Hella Road t-shirt at hellaroad.tv/shop. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you're well, and I'll see you soon.